I'm here with Antoine Halff, founding partner of Kayrros. Thank you for joining us, Antoine.
Thanks for having me.
How have the challenges, do you think, facing the industry changed in the last year?
Well, they've changed in many ways, but what strikes me when we're 3 years into the downturn in oil prices, what strikes me is the narrative of lower for longer, which I don't fully subscribe to, has changed quite dramatically over the last year. A year ago, the talk was all about abundance of supply, and now people who push the lower for longer story have shifted much more towards the peak oil demand narrative. So I think the market is rebalancing. Prices are not quite where most producers would like them to be, but there are clearly signs of tightening the market. Stocks have been falling, not just in OECD countries, but also in non-OECD countries, where companies like Kayrros are now measuring stocks in real time. We see very significant draws and signs of a realignment of supply and demand.
And the theme of this year's Oil and Money Conference is adapting to uncertainty. And what do you think are the main uncertainties that the industry faces going forward?
Well, there's countless uncertainties, but I think there's a reassessment of the prospects of the shale industry. There's great uncertainty about the political outlook for many producing countries, which have been squeezed for now 3 years. The political risk is rising in places ranging from Venezuela to Algeria. There's uncertainty about the speed of the development of the international gas market, the LNG market, and there's growing uncertainty about the outlook for demand, for peak oil demand. How quickly will it come? Will it really set in? And what would be the drivers? What would be the consequences? There's profusion of opinions out there. Hardly a day without a new article in the mainstream press or the trade press about peak oil demand, but the uncertainty is very, very great.
Mm-hmm. And looking at the oil price, what kind of oil price level do you think the industry needs to sustain adequate levels of investment?
Well, we at Kayrros, we try to stay away from predicting the oil price. It's very difficult to do so. But what's really striking about the oil price is that the break-even price has really dropped dramatically in many sectors of the industry, including high-cost sectors like deep water. We're seeing reinflation in the shale sector and pressures, frictions, slowing down the rebound that the market had been expecting in shale. So price story is evolving, but seen in conjunction with the cost story, things are moving as well.
And finally, we've seen a rapid rise in EVs predicted, but I'm just wondering if you think non-auto oil demand growth, such as trucks, planes, ships and petrochemicals, is as secure as the oil companies believe, or could we see another similar big surprise like the war in diesel in Europe, such as a war in plastic, or like the breakthrough in EVs?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, passenger cars are just about 26% of the market, according to IEA numbers. It's a big chunk, but it's not. There's another 74%, and much of the conversation about peak demand has really focused on the passenger vehicle sector. There's tremendous scope for replacement of oil in petrochemicals, with perhaps greater efficiency in use in plastic recycling, for example, a change in feedstock, more use of ethane as opposed to naphtha as a primary petroleum feedstock. Distributed generation, electricity generation as a whole, is a vastly underestimated sector for oil consumption. Actually, the numbers don't quite add up, because much of the diesel that powers gensets in places like India and Pakistan or sub-Saharan Africa come out of petrol stations. So it's typically counted as transportation demand when it's really electricity generation demand. The technology to displace diesel is coming on the market very soon. So there's scope for dramatic changes in the use of oil, in the nature of the fuel mix. And this applies to other sectors as well, marine transport, air transport, non-road uses of oil.
So evolving threats on kind of every...
Very much so, a great uncertainty. I think the scope for displacement of internal combustion engines is perhaps overstated. It's going to be very difficult to get EVs to penetrate the market as quickly as many forecasts have it. But on the other hand, there's tremendous scope for the displacement of oil in other sectors, ranging from industrial users, mining, power generation, and non-passenger vehicle transport.
Very interesting. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Antoine.
Welcome. My pleasure.